welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and another one of my regular updates on what I've been up to in the wonderful world of wargaming. So yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks, week or so since I did my last update. Some pretty good work on the painting front, which I'll get to in a minute, and also some games which were great fun up at the Tim Napoleonic Wargamers Flags to Glory Wargaming Napoleonic event, which was, I'll talk about in a bit as well, which that was great fun to do. Not so much done towards the latter end of this week, and all gaming sort of ceased a bit because I seem to have picked up gastroenteritis, so I'm not feeling at all well at the moment, but good enough to do this video now. You wouldn't have seen me yesterday. Not a pleasant sight. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the painting I've been up to. So first up, this is the officer figure, the corpulent colonel that you get with the Over the Hills and Far Away set from Warlords, the figures I showed off last time out. Those very characterful British infantry from the Peninsula, which is the companion set to the Vive l'Empereur French set. So this, yeah, it's just a bit of fun. It's a big fat colonel sitting on a donkey with a parasol. When he comes around, you can see his belly's poking out of his breeches, and he's having a right old time. Along with the set came the dog, so I thought I'd put the two together on the stand just to make a sort of fun command stand. Quite fun to do. I've really liked those sets. I think for somebody who doesn't really consider themselves a painter, I've actually enjoyed painting these, which is not something that happens very often for me. So anyway, yeah, a bit of fun. And then also with the same set, I think it was just a deal if you bought the two packs together of the French and the British infantry. You got this French Madame and her donkey, which again I just painted up because I had the paintbrushes in my hand and I thought let's just finish them off to get them all finished and out of the way. Not sure how I'll use this one. Could well be, useful resource or something that could be a supply, part of a supply objective or something like that. I don't know, but it's a bit of fun. And again, it's like the last officer figure and the dog figure. They're made with the new Warlord resin, which I think holds the detail beautifully, and therefore holds the paint very nicely. So, quite pleased with how they came out. So I won't go into a lot of detail on these fellas because if you're interested, you can see the video that I put together of how I painted these epic Libyan spearmen. These are for the Carthaginian force of the new epic Punic Wars figures. Lovely, really good fun to do. So you've got basically 3 units here because they come in 3 bases for the standard epic scale. And you can see I've tried to sort of keep even though they probably weren't uniform, just for my own eyesight and sanity of trying to work out which unit goes with which. I sort of done a bit of a colour scheme. So the back unit is sort of blue based, the middle lane unit is sort of reddy based, and the front one is sort of creams and white based, just so that I can tell, as I say, what they are. They're actually quite fun little figures to put together and paint, yeah, thoroughly enjoyed doing these actually. So they'll be part of the core of my Carthaginian epic Punic Wars figures, ready to see the table against the Romans. And then again from the Punic range, this is these are actually Gallic slingers that form part of the Carthaginian army. You base them 5 to a unit, and they are designated a small unit in Hail Caesar. So easy to do, mainly undercoated with dark colour, and then undercoated with a lighter colour, and then Guilliman's flesh over the skin tone, because pretty much all of these have got chest bear or arms bear or everything else. So and you can see even on this scale figure 13.5 or true 15mm, if you like, you can see the definition of the figures is quite good. It holds that sort of contrast paint really nicely indeed. So anyway, some more of the epics done. So I've talked about this before on these update videos, that from time to time I just feel great satisfaction to finish off figures that have sat in the sort of semi-painted pile for a while, or even just prepped but not actually started. And when I was painting through a lot of my Wars of the Roses figures, I had a plan to build a unit of mounted longbow, another one. I've got one in the army and I wanted another one, and so I bought these front rank longbowmen with a view to turning them into the mounted longbow. See, so when they've dismounted, this is the unit that you deploy. And for some reason, I think because I'd sort of largely finished the project, they've just sat there for, crikey, a long time, well over a year, on the popsicles, undercoated but nothing else. So the other week I thought, right, I'll crack on with them. So I made a start, and really pleased with how this came out. So they are front rank metals. I've painted them as Henry Holland's faction. But they could be anybody really. They're nice figures. I really quite enjoyed doing them. Made me wonder why it's taken me so long, if I'm honest. They've got a nice mixture of guys with tabards and those with leather jackets on, some mail, and various other options in there. So I think it just gives a nice thing. And I've also painted up some of the helmets coloured. I know there's some debate whether they, in the medieval period, whether they painted their helmets or not. Some evidence that there was paint on some of them, so I've gone with a few painted, not all of them, but just a few, just to give a bit of variety into the unit. And yeah, pretty pleased with how these fellas came out. So then, of course, having done the dismounted longbowmen, I had to do the mounted ones. So these are, again, metal figures. Let me just pull out a little bit. There we go. They're metal figures. I think they're a mixture of casting room, so the offshot of Foundry, and I want to say Crusader, but I'm not entirely sure. I have had these a long time, and just waiting for something suitable to do with them. And I just thought they'd be fun to, as I say, just to be the mounted version of the dismounted ones you've just seen. Nice and simple to paint up, actually, really good. I'm really pleased that I finally got, these were prepped and ready to go at the same time as the longbowmen, and have also sat there in a steel tin waiting to be painted. So nice to finally get them done and available to be deployed on the table. And it does give me a hankering after having another game of War of the Roses at some point fairly soon. So we'll see where we go with that. But there you go, all done, and quite satisfied with them. Maybe too many closed helms for a mounted longbow unit of this period, but yeah, they look cool. So purchasing wise, what's been up to? I've picked up a box of these the Age of Chivalry figures from War Games Atlantic. This is the Foot Knights, which covers a vast period, 1150 to 1320. I will probably be, well, not probably, I'm planning to turn these into some units for the Bruces in Ireland project. Yep, remember that one, that's still going. And I thought these would be a bit of fun for some dismounted men-at-arms and that sort of thing, so I shall look into that. There's an awful lot of great helms which weren't really around at that period, so hopefully there's enough of the other helmets to allow me to do them. Also, I talked about V for Victory, or showed a flick through the V for Victory Second World War rule set that the company that made or makes Saga and Muskets and Tomahawks have just released. A bit delayed apparently by customs. I've got the cards and also the tokens for that, so I plan to read the rules up and hopefully have a game at some point fairly soon. My first read of the rules, it appears it's very similar to Muskets and Tomahawks, which is good because I quite enjoy that game.
So that is good. I also had a restock of tufts from Tajima Miniatures. They do some lovely tufts. If you haven't seen these, I know Martin uses them, Seventh Son. They do really nice, very, very good tufts. They do the bog standard ones, but they also do sort of more floral ones, which are great for the bigger bases. So rather a lot of them arrived, but that's all done. So that'll keep me going, and I'll intersperse those with the cheaper ones, so that there's some with flowers and what have you, which just gives a little bit of variety and colour to the setup. So gaming wise, had a really good game of General Dame 2 down at the club, which was Plashino, whatever how you ever say it, the Prussian counterattack at Waterloo. Great fun it was too. There were 5 of us playing. Well, I was sort of umpiring more than playing, and Ken reappeared to have a game as well. I did video it, but when I started to listen back to the footage, it was such chaos because there was so much noise going on around the table. It was impossible to catch up with what was going on. But it was a good fun game. Ken enjoyed himself. He was playing the defending French. Always seems to be defending French in the games we play. I don't know why that is, but it does. And Jonathan, Paul, and Tony were taking the Prussians, and there was a heap of them. I think we came to the conclusion at the end of the game because when time ran up, or when we had to leave the building, so to speak, that the Prussians probably had it in the bag. It was, but then the French Guards still hadn't arrived to counterattack, so who knows? But I suspect there was not much left of the initial French forces in that scenario. So, but it was fun. So apologies if I hoped to video it, and I'd say I did video it, but it just was. When I look back on it, it was there was so much banter going on around the table. It was so noisy and so many things happening at different stages. It was very difficult to so I just turned the camera off. Other than that, I was up at Boards and Swords in Derby last weekend for Tim Napoleonic Wargaming's inaugural Napoleonic event. So basically the idea was that it was a 2-day event of 2 games each day, 600 point black powder Napoleonic armies, and it wasn't a competition. It was purely about having a laugh and rolling some dice. And I mentioned this on the Plastic Crack the other night. What was really, I thought was great, was that there was an awful lot of new players there, or people who haven't played very much at all, and that was great to see. So a few unpainted armies, but that didn't really matter. People who made a start on their armies and what have you, but really, really good fun. A tiring 2 days of games, especially when you're out in the evening and not sleeping terribly well in those horrible beds in the Travelodge. Yeah, not my. I realise I'm getting a bit old for that, but thoroughly enjoyed it. Had some really good games. There were. I put some pictures up here, but I didn't do that much photographs or recording because I didn't really want to intrude on things, and we were just having a laugh, to be honest. So first game we played was Secure the Crossroads, it was called. Basically you had to take, there was an objective right in the centre of the table, which by the end of turn 6 or 7, depending on when the game ended, you would have to try and capture. So it was whoever had the most stamina points within a certain radius of that point. And I was playing Alex, who again was one of these new players. He hadn't played before. He bought an Austrian-Russian army, I believe it was. Came all the way up from Hastings on the south coast on the train with it. I mean, geez, dedication. And I ashamedly he knew the rules better than I did because he'd actually read them. So that was probably an advantage to him. But anyway, we had a real cracking game, and he had me I was playing my Swedes all weekend, and he had me really banged to rights. And then suddenly, sometimes happens in games, it just all went a bit sour. I don't really know what happened for him, but his dice rolls all changed. Oh, I know what it was. We had a a melee where he rolled for, he lost the combat by pure chance, shouldn't have done, and then proceeded to roll double one for his break test, and then the supports that were right behind it also rolled a 3, and they ran off. And then immediately after another combat, he managed to roll a 4, and that unit disappeared. So suddenly, from being in a really strong position, he lost quite convincingly, which was a real shame for him. Funny enough, we did have another game, game 3, which we had another game together, which was Escalation, I think it was called, which was basically feeding brigades in from the lengthways on the table. All the battles were played on 6x4s, which made for quite a cramped table. But we had another good ding dong there, which I think came out more as a draw that time. There was another scenario which was called Breakthrough, where I played a chap playing a British army. It was not historical. You didn't play. It was historical as in the period, but it wasn't historical between armies. So he had a British army, and I managed to just get the option on which side of the table to be and whether to be attacker or defender. There was no way I was going to be an attacker against British troops, where the rule, basically the objective was to get off the table. So he then had to attack me, and didn't go so well for him in the end. It was a good fun game. And then my final game was against a Russian army, beautifully painted by James. Really nice game. We had a real cracker, but it was just one of those games where he had absolutely no... My luck was okay. It was nothing special. Actually, no, by then it had actually got better. All the weekend, my dice was pretty average to lowish. But by that game, my dice were hot and his were terrible. And yeah, he was. That was, what was that mission? That was to capture the. There were a couple of fortified areas. I showed a version of it here on the table, playing solo. But the scenario was modified a little bit, so there were only 2 fortified areas or built-up areas, and I was defending, he was attacking. And yeah, I mean, I ended up just basically attacking, because I think attack's the best form of defence in Black Powder, or most war games, to be fair. I basically, because of his appalling dice rolling, managed to absolutely destroy him. I think I'd routed his army before the game was over, which was a shame for him, because it was a beautiful army, and he just had no luck. Interesting, and again, I mentioned on the PCP the other night at this event that there were 18 players, so 18 different armies, and there was only one French player, only one French army, which I found extraordinary. I reckon around about half were either Russian or Austrians, which also surprised me. A lot of Austrians, and I think people have been wooed by the ability to have those very large Austrian infantry regiments, and boy were they nasty to fight. You had to take quite a lot of firepower, because they have a bonus dice if they fire in short range or something. So the large formation gets 4 dice anyway, and they get an extra one for this Austrian rule, so they get 5 dice of firing. So there were a couple of times when my poor Swedes took a volley like that the regiment was shaken straight off the bat. It was just like, whoa, what's going on here? But the big negative for the Austrians and the Russians, particularly for some of the armies they chose to take, was that they couldn't use group moves. Or was very limited in what kind of group moves they could do. So, especially in most of these games were mobile ones, you had to get up the table. And when you're only doing it with the odd regiment here and there, and then everything else is failing, because again most of them seem to take 7 commanders, meant that it was a bit tricky for them. So yeah, which was interesting. So I know Tim's planning to do another one in March, I think next year. I'm sure if you check out his YouTube channel, if you're not already on that, he'll talk about it some more as we get closer. But again, it will be at Boards and Saws. Again, it will be. He said it's going to make a little bit of variation on the game, but it will basically be a friendly 2-day Napoleonic meetup, gaming session, whatever you want to call it. and I bet there'll be more French there next time. We'll see. Anyway, that was the games. So no games for me this week because, as I said, I'm suffering from gastroenteritis. I'm feeling a bit although better than I was yesterday, thankfully. And then I'm supposed to be away. I'm supposed to be away all next week, but I've had to cancel the holiday. So we're probably, if I feel better, we'll go up to Shropshire, I think, and have a look around there and just have a bit of a break and recuperate. I'm just hoping nobody else in the family goes down with the tummy bug. Otherwise, it's not going to be much fun. Anyway, it's what it is. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're doing healthier than I am. And I will see you again soon. This is Dom, signing out.